Solace in the small cinema I went to every Thursday night.
I'm a professor of cinema.
I go to the cinema for the stories.
There was no competition between the cinema and seminar.
I mean, it's not within the realm of conventional cinema.
And now,
here's Pace and Johnson
for the cinema review.
It is Monday, August 10th, 2026, and thank you for joining me for another episode of Cinemaster Reviews. I'm your host, Pace, the Cinemaster Johnson. Took a couple weeks off, so kind of wanted to catch up a little with this week by talking about what is looking to be easily going to end up as one of the top 5 highest grossing films of all time, with Spider-Man Brand New Day already supplanted itself as having the highest grossing opening weekend of all time. And I am also going to be reviewing One Night Only, the new romantic comedy starring Callum Turner and Monica Barbaro. I say we jump right into the video, starting with our first review of the night, Spider-Man Brand New Day. This is the fourth Spider-Man film, fourth solo Spider-Man film in the MCU. I believe this is the 7th appearance of Tom Holland as Spider-Man. This one takes place 4 years after the events of No Way Home, where Peter Parker used a spell in order to make everyone forget that he was in fact Spider-Man. And he has just sort of been living his life and trying to adjust to the fact that he's lost his two best friends in Ned and MJ. Ned played by Jacob Batalon, MJ played by Zendaya. And he's just trying to be a full-time superhero as Spider-Man, but he's starting to finally realize that he's missing that connection that made him a person, that made him a full human being. And he's starting to realize that being a superhero might not be all that's cut out to be. Speaking of being in the superhero side, there is this new anomaly force that is being mind controlling people, and Peter Parker is trying to figure out exactly what is going on. Also, his spider hormones are starting to act really, really crazy. This movie has a lot going on. This movie is tying up a lot of loose ends with where the MCU is, trying to set up a new chapter for Spider-Man. I have enjoyed Tom Holland as the character Spider-Man, and I've really loved all of the Spider-Man movies that he has been a part of. I think he's really grown into his role as the character of Peter Parker. He plays that character way younger than both Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield have been. I wasn't the biggest fan of Far From Home, but I really liked Homecoming. I loved No Way Home. But with where we are at the MCU right now, I was a little cautious to see what we were going to be getting with Brand New Day. This is the first one directed by Destin Daniel Cretton. If that name sounds familiar, he directed Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings around 5 years ago at this point. But this is the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie that is not directed by John Watts. And I will say you definitely see and feel the difference, because this Spider-Man movie feels way different than the other Spider-Man movies we've gotten in the best way possible. I think the number one positive I can say about this film, as opposed to the other films in this franchise so far, is this is the first time Tom Holland has played Spider-Man where it is finally solely being focused on him as the character of Peter Parker. Whether it's Homecoming being a doubleheader between him and Tony Stark, Far From Home, where even though Tony Stark is dead, he's still very much a character in this film, and with No Way Home, obviously, it's him, Tobey Maguire, and Andrew Garfield all playing off each other. This is the first one where the main selling point is Tom Holland as Spider-Man. And I think that's important for the character. If we are going to build this as a franchise going forward, you need to have faith in your lead character. And I think this movie, having the first 20 minutes being just watching like a big montage of Peter Parker fighting different criminals, stopping different crimes. We see him fighting the Scorpion. We see him fighting Tombstone. We see him fighting all these like lower level Spider-Man villains before the major plot happens. And I think that's really fun. And I think centering this film in the on the character of Spider-Man at this point in the MCU, where everything seems so cluttered, we are like very close to making it to Doomsday. I think making a solo superhero movie where we are really just following one character was very much needed to make the audience invested once again. Speaking of those connections with the MCU, you don't really need to have seen too many other Marvel movies to understand what is going on with this movie. I think it helps if you've at least seen the other Spider-Man films because you understand the relationship between Peter and MJ and between Peter and Ned. But for the most part, it really doesn't try to this is not a movie that's like setting up many movies down the line. There are some connections here, and I will talk about them later. For example, when Peter is having issues with controlling his powers, he goes to another superhero that has trouble controlling his powers, Hulk, aka Bruce Banner, played by Mark Ruffalo, and that connection feels natural. There is a scene where Peter's trying to figure out who is mind controlling everyone in Queens, and he goes to Yelena, played by Florence Pugh. She's very funny in the movie, has a very entertaining scene. At the same time, I was wondering, like, we really didn't need to have her in this film. She has 2 scenes. One of them is literally over a Zoom call, so that was kind of funny. But for the most part, I think what makes this movie works is it is focusing on Spider-Man and Peter Parker as a character through and through. Tom Holland is someone, I know there's been a lot of talk recently about, is Tom Holland a good actor? Is he a bad actor? I think he feels maybe a little bit out of place in the Odyssey. I think that's really just sort of like a commentary on the character of Telemachus always feeling like a character that just feels a little bit more wimpy than everyone else. But I think as the character of Peter Parker, he has really come into his own throughout, at this point, 10 years of playing the character. It was 2016 when he showed up in Captain America Civil War. And even this version of Peter Parker, he's much sadder, but not like depressed or like mopey, as in where like sort of Garfield got in his later movies. He's just like finally realizing, like, hey, being a superhero kind of sucks. I can't have any personal connections. This is my 24-hour a day job, and you really feel that stress from Holland. I think the character moments he has with all the different actors in this film, he has some very emotional moments with Zendaya. Obviously, Tom Holland and Zendaya are married. They still have very, very good chemistry. There was a ton of great comedic elements between Peter Parker and Frank Castle in this movie. I was a little worried about bringing the character of Frank Castle into the filmverse, especially in a movie like Spider-Man, which obviously Frank Castle, a very hard R-rated character, just killing people left and right, always swearing. And it seems a little bit out of place having him, like, every time he's about to say the F word, Peter Parker like webs his mouth shut. At the same time, the scenes where Bernthal and Holland are playing off each other is incredibly entertaining. I could watch these two rip off each other for hours and hours on end. If they made a TV series, which I really hope they don't at this point, we don't need more Marvel shows. I would love just a Spider-Man, a Punisher TV show, because I think they have a ton of great chemistry. But yeah, in regards to that other chemistry, I think this is hands down Zendaya's best performance as the character of MJ. Obviously, MJ at this point has no idea who Peter Parker is, and she's sort of rediscovering that friendship in real time again. We're trying to see, can Peter have MJ fall in love with her again? And was that love so powerful that it would just come naturally to her? I don't want to spoil where that goes, even though the movie is a week old at this point. But I think they go to some pretty powerful places, and there's this one scene towards the middle where something is finally revealed about what Peter has been doing, and Zendaya plays that very, very well. There's another scene where the person that has been mind controlling everyone does end up mind controlling Zendaya. Wild scene, and an incredibly, like, really well acted from Zendaya. And then, yeah, Jacob Batalon, again, Ned is a character that I think we've sort of taken for granted as just being this really fun comedic relief side character, as like, oh, he's the guy that's always going to be Peter's guy in the chair. And you realize why these two became best friends, because my favorite scenes in this movie are where Peter, MJ, and Ned are just hanging out and just being friends, and Peter and Ned are just building Legos in their apartment, and you see that, like, just natural kinship these two characters have, and Holland and Batalon play that very, very well. The other major performance I really need to talk about, Sadie Sink is in this movie. If you've seen the trailers, they were keeping her role very secret. If you haven't seen the movie, I would probably recommend stepping out, because about halfway through the film, you learn the person who has been mind controlling everyone in Queens was in fact Jean Grey. Jean Grey is obviously one of the more famous X-Men. She has mutant powers that allows her to mind control different people. She can levitate objects because she's a telekinetic. And I won't say what her motives are. All I will say is Sadie Sink is very, very good in this role. This is a character that could have come off very cheesy, could have come off very self-serious with a different actor, but I think she adds just the right amount of intensity to make this part really, really special. And I will say maybe towards the third act, I wasn't the biggest fan of how like everything in this movie is resolved, just in terms of like the short term, but with knowing they're going to be building the X-Men off of her as Jean Grey, I am very excited to see what happens in the MCU going forward. If I were to talk about the technical aspects of this movie, I think you can very clearly tell this was made by a different director than John Watts, because I think the action is much, much cleaner, much more fun to watch. The action in this film, I think Destin Daniel Cretton definitely took a lot of inspiration from the new Spider-Man video games, just with how just like crisp Spider-Man is with like fighting all these enemies, fighting all these like ninjas at one point. The hand have essentially been repurposed to help fight crime. Eventually, they turn on Spider-Man just through Jean Grey's powers, and just how the punches really feel like really fast. The web swinging action feels really crisp. It is probably the cleanest I've seen action portrayed in a Spider-Man movie, and I think it's handled very, very well. Speaking of the web swinging in this movie, there are points where it really conveys how quick and how just like sort of like narrow-minded Peter's view is when he is swinging, and just how like introspective he is going through everything. At the same time, there's this really wonderful scene where Peter and MJ are just swinging, and you really feel like this could be Peter's last time swinging with MJ. This is the last time he gets to hold her, and it really makes you sit in that. I was genuinely really impressed by all the different emotions this movie did have me feeling. If I were to talk about some negatives, I will say this movie is around 2.5 hours. It's tackling a lot of stuff. It has a lot of jobs it has to convey. And I don't think it needed to be quite that long. I think you could have gotten rid of a little bit of the fat. I mentioned there is a plot point in this movie where Peter's spider powers, where Peter is starting to lose control of his powers as Spider-Man. There are moments where he just sort of blacks out and becomes like an animal and becomes much more vicious in his fighting. He becomes a little bit more like a mini version of the Hulk. I don't think that storyline really really ends in like a super satisfying way where I'm like, man, we really needed this storyline in this film. I think it just ends in a way of like, okay, this might be brought up later, but I could totally see like movies down the line we never learn about, like, hey, remember that one time where Peter just had a really tough time controlling his powers, and every time he fought, he would just go into this really he would black out and just go into this really rage-induced violence. There's a good chance that probably just won't come up again. And I think if you were to cut this movie down and just cut out a few different plot threads, that probably would have been the first one to go. This movie's around 2.5 hours. I think by the end, you definitely start to feel what's going on. We have a couple villain switches throughout the film. I won't say who the villains switch out to be, but you definitely feel like you could have trimmed some stuff down and get this to like maybe a 2 hour, maybe 2 hour 10-minute film, and I think it would have been even more effective as a film. Tremel Tillman and Liza Colin Gonzalez are in this movie. Very good actors. Not given a ton to do. I think this is just a product of the modern MCU where they hire these really, really great actors and they don't give them like the best ways for them to shine. I think the actors that do get the best chances to shine are the ones that we've grown to love, as well as John Bernthal and Mark Ruffalo. I do think how the Hulk stuff pays off in this film is very satisfying. Yet there were just a few things that I think kept this movie from being like an all-time MCU movie. But overall, I think this is one of the better live-action Spider-Man movies we've got, and easily one of the better MCU movies we've gotten post-Endgame. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, I'm going to go pretty high, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I think this is a great superhero movie. It having about a million different jobs at its hand, I think it accomplishes most of them very, very well. I'm excited to see where the Spider-Man franchise goes. I don't think this is going to be the last time we see Tom Holland as Peter Parker. I don't know if certain characters are going to be coming back, but if there are a few more times we get to see Holland playing this character, I'm going to be very satisfying. I would say go see it. But judging by that box office, you probably already have. But yeah, I think this is a very, very good Spider-Man movie. But I said we head right into the second review of the night, that being One Night Only, directed by Will Gluck. If you recognize that name, he directed Easy A, Anyone But You, the remake of Annie that came out 10 years ago, a little more than 10 years ago at this point. This focuses on a futuristic sci-fi society where premarital sex has been outlawed. The government has stepped in to essentially keep people's hormones down. We don't really know why, but every single world government has seemed to take different steps to eliminate premarital sex in our society, except for in America, there is one night given to single people where they are allowed to go out and sleep with anyone they want, even if they aren't married. And it follows these two characters. Owen, someone whose longtime girlfriend who is planning on proposing to, tells him that she thinks they should see other people tonight to see if their relationship is really strong. As well as Allie, played by Monica Barbaro, who is just out trying to see if maybe this is the night where she can find love, where she can find that special somebody. These two end up running into each other at the night, and while they don't have an attraction for each other at first, they decide that they are going to help each other find partners so that way they can seal the deal with someone else. I think the number one thing working against this film, if I can just sip my coffee, I think the number one thing that is working against this film is it has this insurmountable mountain. Like, not even like a mountain. We are talking like an atmosphere-piercing statue that it has to vault in order to explain the absurdity of this premise. As you might expect, yes, this is the Purge, but it's for sex. It is, sex has been banned. So you're probably thinking like, okay, how is that regulated? How is this monitored? Well, essentially, we are explained that at the age of 18, you are given a barcode that appears as a tattoo on your arm, where if you are not married, it is red, and if you are married, it is green. And if you try to have sex while you have that barcode inside of you, it will trigger a increased level of hormones, where the cops will be alerted to your location, and they have permission to break constitutional rights in order to break into your premise and arrest you on the spot if you are breaking this law. From what we are told, this law does not pertain to gay couples. So two men and two women are allowed to have as much premarital sex as they want. It is strictly heterosexual couples. At the same time, we also learn that there are people that are making drugs that will suppress your hormones while you have sex, so that way the government is not alerted while you are doing the act. It is an insane premise, and the more the film tries to like yada yada all the details, at the same time it knows it can't just like completely not explain anything, because we are just gonna have too many questions about this asinine premise that the film came up for itself. But hey, if this is what we need to get more studio rom-coms in theaters, I guess this is just what we need to do. Also, there's a sign where there's a scene where Allie is in a police station. She's seeing all the acts that are legal and not legal. Apparently, you are allowed to masturbate, so that is another thing that is a part of this rule. Also, on the One Night Only where you're allowed to have sex, it must be protected, which there is a very large plot point where both Owen and Allie are trying to find just one condom throughout the night. At one point, they find just one, and they sort of have to get into a fight over who is the one that gets that. It's very, very complicated, and all I'm saying is I think this movie would have been better if it didn't have such a crazy premise in general. And I think I might have liked it more because I think what this movie is held up by is the fact that Callum Turner and Monica Barbaro are very charming actors. Callum Turner is someone I've never been like super crazy about, but I think he's actually pretty entertaining here. Actually has like quite a few moments in this film that genuinely made me laugh specifically from him. I think he has a lot of physical comedy that he's able to work up very well. There is one scene where if you have a penis, will have you dying of laughter and also wincing in pain in the funniest way possible with the way how he plays it. Monica Barbaro is someone I've loved since I saw her in Top Gun Maverick. I loved her in Top Gun Maverick. I loved her in A Complete Unknown. I even liked her earlier in Crime 101, where she played this thankless role, kind of as the love interest to Chris Hemsworth character. But I think she just brings a lot of light to these roles. And I think she has a ton of comedic chops. I think she plays the idea of, oh, this hopeless romantic that really feels like every single guy she meets could be the next guy she falls in love with, and always just getting her heart broken. Not necessarily getting her heart broken per se, but just like crazy things just keep on happening to her that just makes it harder and harder for her to truly believe, like, do I really have someone out there waiting for me? I think these two actors have decent enough chemistry. It's not like they're like radiating off the screen like, wow, I need to see these actors get together by the end, or else what are we doing? But they're entertaining enough. I think honestly, I think they just work really well as like, they sort of have just that like throwing barbs at each other sort of friendship really, really down, with how they just constantly just throw insults at, like, oh, your ears are like billboards, or your legs are too weird. It's two extremely attractive people just constantly like insulting each other about how not attractive they are. So if that bothers you, you're probably not going to like this movie. But I think their chemistry is decent enough. I think you can probably tell who they're going to end up with by the end, but in case you won't, I won't say what happens. I do think the side cast and the supporting players are actually very, very strong in this film. The scene where Callum Turner goes to essentially try to propose to his girlfriend played by Maya Hawke. She plays this in the most like sweet way of like, I really think we should sleep with someone else tonight. I'm going to be sleeping with your neighbor, and this is what we're going to do. And if our relationship is strong enough, I'm not going to like it. Just her comedic tendencies are really, really strong. LeVar Burton plays Owen's mom's new boyfriend, and his like weird relationship of like, yeah, you know, I'm doing your mom, but I'm still trying to be a supportive father figure to you, is really funny there. Yeah, most of the supporting cast really works well. I will say, if I were to cut something out, is I think the idea of Ali ending up with someone that ends up being like a complete like a total just like F-boy criminal is done twice, which the first time it's done, it's kind of funny, but the second time it's just, it doesn't quite have the same effect. And this movie's around an hour and 45 minutes. It doesn't overstay its welcome too much, but I think if you would have cut this down to maybe like an hour and 35 minutes, I think you would have had something really, really strong. Because I do think by the end, I think when we are really counting down to like, are certain characters going to end up getting together? Are they going to hook up? Time doesn't really feel like it's operating in the same way it has been throughout the entire film. And I think that's just a detriment to the film, where as you're watching, like, wait, are we really in that big of a rush? Are we like really just counting down the clock to like, oh man, can they do it? Can they do it? Because you really just feel like, well, yeah, they're obviously going to do it because we seem to have all the time in the world with how the editing is, with how the pacing of the film is going. But I do digress. I do think this is enjoyable enough as a film. If I were to rate this movie on a scale of 0 to 10 videotapes, I'm going to give it a 6.5. I don't think this breaks the mold by any means for the romantic comedy genre. I think the premise is still ludicrous, even the more I try to explain it. But it's sometimes just fun to watch charming actors be charming together. I think that's kind of what holds the romantic comedy genre up so strong. And I do think Barbaro and Turner are charming enough. If you have time to see this in theaters, if you're a fan of the genre, I would recommend it. If not, I think this would be a pleasant enough at-home experience. But yeah, one night only. Solid film. But thank you all for watching. That is going to bring us to the end of our show. Remember to like this video and subscribe to the video store. It helps grow our channel a lot. Next week, I'm going to be reviewing The End of Oak Street, the new film by David Robert Mitchell, director of It Follows and Under the Silver Lake, as well as Teenage Sex and Death at Camp Miasma, the new film from Jane Schoenbrun. Very excited for both of those films. Hope both of those are good. Going to be talking about them with you guys next week. And as always, till next time, watch more movies.
And the award for most vapid film review of the century goes to...
Okay, movie review. Okay, I thought it was beauty.
And he's now in cinema hell, where one day
We'll all be reunited.
This is me at the Regal Cinema crying as I did through much of the film.